Hello, I think we're recording. This is Mother Storm from St. James the Less. This is week 7 of our Bible marathon. We meet every week. We read 3 chapters a day. We meet every week on Sundays, those who can, to discuss what we've just read. And then just after that, or shortly after, I try to record a video for those who couldn't be here. So we discussed last week Leviticus chapter 26 through Numbers chapter 12. And let me tell you just a little bit about what came up. Leviticus, the latter part of Leviticus from 17 on is called the Holiness Code. And you see in it a lot of emphasis on the holiness of the people. Connected to that, you see a lot about collective holiness and also collective guilt. That led to a discussion about theodicy in the book of Leviticus. Theodicy is the defense of the goodness of God in the face of evil, the existence of evil. And in the book of Leviticus, there's this idea that the sin of an individual, if not properly atoned for or repented, can infect the entire community. In turn, that sin can also, bit by bit of individuals, drive God out from among the people. So if something catastrophic happens to the community, to the people, then it is the sin of people in that community that is to blame. So there's no external sort of Satan figure to blame. It is the people who are at fault and their failure to live up to the standards and laws that they've been given, the standards asked of them. So it's kind of a sort of a frightening theodicy, and certainly you don't get it throughout the entire Old Testament. There are different theodicies, and there are stronger senses of individual guilt versus corporate guilt later on in the Old Testament. We'll discuss that in a few weeks. But we talked about that. We also talked about the festivals that are described that are still practiced in the Jewish faith today, like in Leviticus 16, Yom Kippur, of course, the most important, as well as the Festival of Booths described in Leviticus 23. We talked about, being a table of women. Of course, we talked about Numbers chapter 5, where you get this really archaic ritual that it just sounds horrific. If a man suspects his wife, even so much as suspects his wife of adultery with no basis in fact, no evidence of that, he can send her to the priest. The priest gives her this ash and water formula that he makes her drink. And I mean, it's just so archaic. It sounds like something out of medieval witch trials. But it's if she drinks it and she feels sick as a result, as you well imagine she well could, she's guilty. If she becomes infertile as a result, she's guilty. If she drinks it and she's fine, she's not guilty and everything's good. So just the idea that a man could, just on the basis of a mere suspicion, subject his wife to this awful ritual. I mean, just the insult of that was really felt around the table on Sunday. And we talked connected to that about the patriarchy, the patriarchal nature of these laws, and the notion that runs throughout that women are property. We talked about lex talionis, this idea that vengeance should be proportionate and checked. This eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth passage that we all are pretty familiar with is often thought by Christians to be indicative of the vengeful, violent Old Testament. And to the contrary, eye for an eye was kind of a check on vengeance. So if you take my eye, I cannot, no matter how important I am in the community, how wealthy or whatever my status is, I cannot go and just take your head off in exchange. There has to be a sort of proportionate revenge exacted. So if you take my eye, I can take your eye. It stops there. If you take my arm, I can take your arm. But I can't take any more than that. So really, again, it's a merciful idea, and most of us Christians totally fail to grasp that. So we talked about that. And, those are the main things. Next week, I want to start with something we didn't touch on, which was that moving passage where Moses admits to God that he simply cannot go on and he can't keep leading the people. He's exhausted. It's a very human, wonderful moment. In fact, we're also going to start with Moses and God's dynamic, which deserves a discussion in its own right. So I'm going to leave it because I'm just over 5 minutes. And I hope you'll join us next week. We will pick up with Numbers chapter 13, 3 chapters a day. We'll be here in the ISOM room, 9:45. And those of you who can't make it, I'll try to do another one of these videos again after. Okay, be well. Thank you for watching. Bye.